Did you see that there is a Minions meal coming to Wendy's?
No.
And it's going to have a banana Frosty.
Oh, that's got your name written all over
That's
it.
an immediate purchase for me.
The Minions don't do it for me.
My mom is obsessed with the Minions.
I mean,
She's
listen,
obsessed.
every like middle-aged
Moms love
woman,
Minions.
moms love Minions. They use them for everything. They're like,
MLM.
happy birthday, have a Minion.
MLM. Moms. There's some like conspiracy in there. Moms love
MLM,
Minions. MLM.
As in man loving a man.
Awesome.
Happy Pride.
But on the whole, I've been a saint to those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello and welcome to Poor Unfortunate Podcast, where Disney is what we do. It's what we live for. We're the two besties you never knew you needed. I'm Conor Perkins.
And I'm Caroline Ameti. This is a Disney podcast for grown-ups because we believe that magic gets better with age. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to all of our returning listeners and viewers. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And welcome to any new listeners or viewers. Thank you so much for hitting play. Please also remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're getting the podcast and opt in for notifications if you're on YouTube. And then at the end of the episode or right now, if you're feeling it, hit 5 stars, leave a written review, leave a comment wherever you're getting the podcast. It's one of the best things you can do to help support the podcast and help it reach other people. So thanks for doing that. And if you would like to support the podcast even more, you can become a member of the Poor Unfortunate Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Poor Unfortunate Podcast. That's patreon.com/Poor Unfortunate Podcast. All of our plans are under $10 and all of the money goes right back into the podcast and helping us keep it up and running. Members get exclusive bonus episodes, exclusive content, and they also get Caroline What's New, which is our bi-weekly mini episode series where we go through all the latest and greatest in Disney news, and it makes the podcast a weekly podcast for you. So that's there for you too, if you want to check it out.
Yeah, and our Trident tier members get a merch credit as part of their membership. And as we've mentioned, our collaboration with Most Magical Printing Company is about to be here. So it kind of will pay for itself starting off. Girl math, maybe, but
yeah,
I think it's sound math. So that's
Girl
another
math,
great thing.
Disney math.
Disney math.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our tips and tricks episode, and this has been a while coming. Most of you should know what this is already, but if this is your first episode with us and you didn't know this was coming, number one, thank you for being here.
Yes.
But number two, Caroline, why don't you just tell them what we're doing?
Yes, this is our first ever book club episode. So first of all, that's something we've talked about doing for a very long time on here. We've talked about books here and there, but this is our first full-on, like we gave y'all a lot of advance notice about what book we were going to read so that you could hopefully read along with us. So today, we are going to be talking about Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hochhauser. So as soon as we heard about this book, we knew it was literally the perfect book to do a book club episode for. Like, this was the one. And I think we were more right than we ever dreamed that we would be in a lot of ways.
Truly.
Yes. So something that we wanted to note for you is that the first part of this episode is going to be spoiler free. So if you haven't read the book yet, you are free to listen, and we will give you a clear warning when we're going to move into spoiler territory. So that way you can get a little bit of an idea about the book, hear our very strong encouragement to read it, and just find out if it's something that you would be interested in, which I think if you're here tuning into this, it will be.
You probably will
Yeah.
be interested. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go over just some basic information about this book. So Lady Tremaine, it is by Rachel Hochhauser. It was published on March 3rd, 2026 by St. Martin's Press. It is Rachel Hochhauser's debut novel, and it was a Book of the Month Club and Reese's Book Club selection upon its release for the month of March. The summary from the book, twice widowed Lady Etheldreda Verity Isolde Tremaine Bramley is solely responsible for her 2 children, a priggish stepdaughter, a razor-taloned peregrine falcon, and a crumbling manor. Fierce and determined, Ethel clings to her respectability her deceased husband's title affords her, hoping it will secure her daughter's future through marriage. When a royal ball offers the chance to change everything, Ethel risks her pride in pursuit of an invitation for all 3 of her daughters, only to see her hopes fulfilled by the wrong one. As an engagement to the future king unfolds, Ethel discovers a sordid secret hidden in the depths of the royal family, forcing her to choose between the security she craves and the well-being of the stepdaughter who has rebuffed her at every turn. Exhilarating to its core, Lady Tremaine reimagines the myth of the evil stepmother at the heart of the world's most famous fairy tale. It is a battle cry for a mother's love for her daughters and a celebration of women everywhere who make their own fortunes. And then a brief little biography about Rachel Hochhauser. So she was born in Santa Barbara, California. She graduated from New York University. Hey, Violets.
Go Fighting Violets!
Has a master's in fiction from the University of Southern California. Outside of writing, she is the co-founder of Piecework, a design-forward puzzle company. I love me a puzzle.
Wow, love, yeah.
And she lives in Portland, Oregon with her husband and 2 daughters. And one other thing I'll note here for her biography is that she should be friends with us. So, yeah.
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 So like we mentioned, this was a Reese's Book Club pick. And so often on the Reese's Book Club Substack, authors will write a little Dear Reader. So we wanted to read you Rachel's because it's fascinating to hear how this idea came to her. And I think it's such a rich story that comes from her. And there's a little bit of background about it. So here we go. Dear Reader, Lady Tremaine came to me in a hospital waiting room. It was a difficult year for my family. My husband had become suddenly and seriously ill, a brain abscess, and what followed was a long stretch of caretaking, medical appointments, and single parenting our toddler while continuing to work full-time. We spent months moving in and out of doctors' offices, living with uncertainty, exhaustion, and the recalibration that happens when someone you love is no longer well. It was during one of those appointments, blearily scrolling on my phone, that I came across an image of Cinderella's evil stepmother. Like many women my age, I grew up loving Cinderella, aching for my own happily ever after, and identifying with the story's namesake. But this time, looking at the stepmother, I didn't see a villain motivated by harm. I saw myself, a woman motivated by care, doing whatever she could to survive, a mother. I could not stop thinking about the many ways women fight to protect those they love and how this intersects with, or more often fails to intersect with, the stories we pass down, especially to girls. I could not let go of picking at the fairy tale message I had absorbed so completely as a child, that if you're beautiful and nice, you just might be lucky enough to be picked by a prince. That safety and love arrive from the outside. Lady Tremaine is my answer to those questions. It reframes the Cinderella story from the perspective of the so-called evil stepmother, but it's far more than a retelling. The novel plays inside the familiar beats of the fairy tale before breaking free of them entirely. It's a love story, but not the kind you expect, and an attempt to imagine a different version of happily ever after. Bringing this book to life has been its own kind of happy ending. My husband, thankfully, is doing well. We now fittingly have 2 little girls. And in publishing a novel, especially this one, I've been able to fulfill a dream of my own, which is all the better because I did it myself. I'm so pleased to share the version of Cinderella I wish I'd been raised on, and one I'm immensely proud to give my daughters. I hope you love Lady Tremaine. Rachel Hochhauser. I was about to start crying already. This is going to be a rough episode for me. This is going to be rough. Rachel, call me. Call me.
Yeah.
Call me.
So we are going to start with a couple discussion questions. Some of these have been taken from bookclub.com. Some of them have been submitted from listeners of our podcast, and some of them have been sort of come up with, judged by us ourselves. So this first one is actually from a friend of ours, Kate, who is at Reading Makes the World Go Round on Instagram.
If you're a reader, you should absolutely follow her account. It's fabulous.
And she says, I'm curious about how the story tackles someone who is pretty villainous in our understanding of the story. Does it make her a misunderstood tragic hero? or does it allow her to retain her villainy and be a main character? So I wanted to include this in this section because I think this is kind of the question that most people who are picking up this book are asking themselves. And I think
Mhm.
to answer it without spoilers, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
This is a true reimagination of the story of Cinderella and all of the characters, Lady Tremaine included. I think a lot of people are looking at this as like a retelling of Cinderella, and I don't really think that that is a fair assessment of it because, as Rachel Hochhauser says in that Dear Reader, it really expands way beyond that and starts becoming its own thing. And I think that's actually where this book excels most.
Agreed.
So this book takes Lady Tremaine's perspective. It gives her new depth as our protagonist, but it also doesn't shy away from any of her flaws. She falls a lot more into the anti-hero category with some of her moral ambiguity, willingness to operate in gray areas, and she's being driven by this need to survive, which also can be like a trait of an anti-hero. But at the same time, this is a story in which the historical backdrop is very much a character as well. And so much of what is asked of us as a reader is to look at Lady Tremaine in that context as much as we look at her on her own. So we have to examine like the way that she is acting. Is this because this is who she is, or because this is what the world around her is forcing her to become? And I think one of the things you see a lot in this is her being very much like at odds with the world around her, the role that she has to fulfill. And I think that's where all of the really, really good, juicy stuff of this character is. Watching them sort of resist and come up against the parts of themselves that we are familiar with. One of the things that is sort of central to the story is falconry. So that's not something that is in the original fairy tale, but Lady Tremaine, without giving away anything, she has a falcon, a peregrine falcon. And there is a line from the book, and I just want to quote this. It says, "Falconry at its core is taking a creature that is primordial, instinctive, beautifully primitive, and fundamentally selfish, and teaching it obedience, order, and fidelity," end quote. And I feel like that quote sort of sums up what we're doing here with the Lady Tremaine character. We're looking at this whole person in all that she is, and then the way in which it has sort of been domesticated down for us in the fairy tale Cliff's Note sort of version of it. So it's almost like we're getting the Falcon unhooded sort of situation.
Ooh, yeah, so true.
Anything you want to add?
I definitely agree with that. And I feel like, yes, even though Ethel does walk us through things that happened in her past, this is less so of that deep dive into this villain character's psyche. It's much more action packed than that. It's much more plot driven. It's not like, basically take the story that and just take a deep dive into what was going on in her head through it. Like you said, like Rachel said in that intro, it breaks free of the Cinderella story in a large part of it. So yeah, it's not, I'll talk about it in a little while too, but it's not one of those typical like misunderstood villain stories, really. It's very much a twist on that genre, I feel like.
And nor is it an origin story. You get origins, you get the retelling of the story, and
but
you get more.
But every piece of origin you get is for a reason too. It's not just like, let's just like tell you about her whole life because you don't know about it. It's like she's sharing things for a specific reason.
The next thing I want to talk about, so let's just talk about Rachel's choice to name her specifically after the Disney stepmother. So Lady Tremaine as a character, that is the Disney animated name. And I think there's been a lot of talk about this in particular. And it has sort of, I think, thrown a lot of people for a loop in terms of it calls to mind very vividly that specific version of the character, which I think is good for marketing purposes and everything. It gets you to pick up the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I first heard of this and saw the cover, I actually assumed it would be, what is it? Hyperion does Disney stuff a lot. I kind of assumed that. So it works for that reason alone. Yeah.
To call this book The Stepmother or something would be so reductive and so at odds with what this book is actually doing, which is to give you the three-dimensional view of this character. And most retellings and tellings of Cinderella only call her the evil stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
The most iconic version where she is actually given some sort of name is the Disney version. So I think this is the best sort of foot forward that Rachel has to letting us know who we're talking about. We bring a context to it, but also saying this is a full person.
Yeah, and it also brings
to
in
a trope.
Yeah, and it brings in what you mentioned earlier too, with the setting and the historical context being a character on its own, and this gives you that hint as well that it's class and who she is in that way plays a huge part in this story and can't really be pulled separately from it. Yeah, I think it's a really great choice though.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. If you look up a lot of book club questions online, and I think actually when friends of ours have heard that we were going to be talking about this on here, a lot of people wanted to know, how does Lady Tremaine compare to other myth or fairy tale retellings that we've read? And there's a book club question that's like, what other ones have you read? And I was like, is
all
this
of
thing
them.
on?
She's read them all.
So I read a crap ton of feminist retellings of myths and fairy tales. It is truly my primary reading genre. It has been since I was a young girl. It's my favorite thing to read. And if you enjoy the genre too, let's be friends. But the current holder of my heart that's actually the book that I read before this was from this trilogy. So the current holder of my heart in this genre is the Morgan Is My Name trilogy that continues with Le Fay and Storm Over Camelot, which retells the Camelot myth through the eyes of the sorceress Morgan Le Fay. So a very similar idea, which is she's the villain in the Camelot story a lot of the time. She also had a bird at her service. I was just these two ladies need to be friends. I actually loved reading them one after another. I just love my ladies that the world calls villainous, who are really just fierce, intelligent, and unwilling to take shit from men. They're my favorite. Conor and I have, of course, told you all about our love for Upon a Starlit Tide by Kell Woods, which combines Cinderella and The Little Mermaid to stunning effect in a French period setting. We were reading that at this time last year.
Yeah.
So we've really been on a roll with some of this stuff.
We really have.
We have. But I have revisited myths with Ariadne, Medusa, Circe, The Witch's Heart, retellings of Swan Lake with A Treachery of Swans, and A Feather So Black, which I did not continue the series of, but that's another story for another time. Of course, the ACOTAR series. I could go on and on. On my to-be-read shelf currently are Daughter of the Forest and No Friend to This House, which is a Medea retelling. I'm very excited about that. That might be next. I might just stay on this kick and that might be my next read. Actually, I was going to bring up this book later, but I think I'm going to bring it up now because it sort of relates. It's not a retelling, but if you're really feeling this genre in general and some of the ideas that Lady Tremaine does bring up, I found this in a bookstore last week and I picked it up right after this because it seems like the perfect companion. It is called Women of the Fairy Tale Resistance, the forgotten founding mothers of the fairy tale and the stories that they spun.
Ooh.
And it's basically all about how women started the fairy tale tradition. And as per usual, history tried to write them out of it. So yes, this is very much the inside of my brain. But amongst all of these great reads, this was such a standout for me. I loved, we were talking about earlier, that this wasn't a typical, she was justified all along retelling of the same story, a la Wicked, which is something that I love.
And totally good in its own right.
Absolutely. But in the way that Wicked at its time was kind of a new thing, this to me isn't just participating in the genre, it's pushing it further along because it's something much more focused on a new version of the story that's action-packed and surprising rather than just focusing on the idea that we've heard the story wrong the whole time. It
Mhm.
feels like a new take, like I said, on the genre overall. And I was thinking that this is in a lot of ways what I kind of wish Disney live action remakes were more like, even though I know that
I
will
agree.
never happen because, like, not to throw shade, but right now the Moana live action looks like it's shot for
It's a
shot.
carbon copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're so far away from that.
And
But
see, I think this is one of the things that I really liked, for better or for worse, about Mulan.
Yeah.
Like, there are some people who didn't like Mulan. There are some people who did
Yeah.
like it. But I think what worked the best there is they were using the structure and the story and the things that we know about Mulan to tell a different version of the story, to tell a new story.
yes, even my favorite parts of, obviously like the Cinderella live action which is
Yes, I was going to say
extremely
the same thing.
yeah, it's extremely faithful to the Disney movie, yet at the same time, some of my
It
favorite
is its own thing.
It is, and some of my favorite parts of it are the new things they added, like the fact that Ella and Kit connect over having parents who have passed away and the king does pass away. Like, that's the good stuff.
That they meet in the forest ahead of time before the ball even
Yes.
happens. Like,
Yes.
and I would also throw Cruella in here too. Which
I thought of
again,
the
that's
same
not-
thing. Yeah.
It's not a live action remake or
Yeah.
anything like that, but it is a new story inspired by
Yep.
this character.
Mhm.
And that is truly what Lady Tremaine is. This is a new
Yeah.
story with some of the tent poles that we would expect, and we're looking for to give us a very, very light framework of the
Mhm.
Cinderella story. But it starts before the Cinderella story and it extends much after the sort of Cinderella story as we know ends.
Mhm.
This is truly, going into it, you should know this is its own thing.
Yep. Yep. So to wrap up our non-spoiler section of this, we just wanted to give you our like overall rating recommendation a la Goodreads. So Connor is very faithful to his Goodreads. I'm not that kind of girl. I try to be, but I'm not. But Connor, would you like to read your Goodreads?
Yeah. So if you are on Goodreads or Storygraph, come find me.
Come find me.
I am.
It's been too long since we've done that on
It's
here.
been too long since we had one. So you can find me, go into my like Instagram or whatever, and I have like a link tree and you can find me there. But for me, this was a 5-star read. And I said, wow, I was not expecting this to have the stranglehold on me that it did. But honestly, I'm a sucker for a reimagining of Cinderella, so I should have seen this coming. This novel takes the classic fairy tale and reconfigures it from the traditional villain's point of view. For folks looking for a retelling that aligns with the fairy tale one-to-one, this ain't it. We are using the fairy tale as a springboard into something new. And what we get is a fierce and feminist period drama that blends the beauty of Jane Austen and Charles Perrault with the grit and thrill of Gillian Flynn and Leanne Moriarty. It's Bridgerton meets Big Little Lies. The characters and the settings are gripping, and the prose goes down with the smoothness of a seasoned author. How this is a debut novel is beyond me. I devoured every bit of this book and was here for every bit of this incredible ride. I cannot wait for what is next from Rachel Hochhauser. So that's my review.
So I wrote one, if I kept up with my Goodreads, this is what I would write. Maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe this will inspire me. So I wept for the last like 15 pages of this book. And then at 1 a.m. when I finished, my husband had his headphones on and was playing a video game. And I went, boop, 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 excuse me, come sit here. And as I was still crying, I made him sit down and listen to me recount the full plot to him. The prose is rich and gorgeous, and the structure still manages to be unpredictable within the confines of a story that we all know. I thought I knew what was coming and what to expect from this book, and I just didn't. When the story continues on from the place where the Cinderella tale ends, the twists had me white-knuckling my way to the end. We're not getting a misunderstood villain story in any expected way here, with Rachel Hochhauser choosing atmospheric historical realism over magic and fantasy, which is a departure from so many villain origin stories I've read, especially of the fantasy genre. And it made it feel really unique. But for those wishing for more of an it's good to be bad vibe, there is still plenty of darkness in this tale. And I would also give it 5 stars. And I'm just like, wow, everything that people put out that's a retelling of Cinderella becomes like my new obsession.
Your new favorite.
Yeah, my new favorite. Move over, bad Cinderella. Lady Tremaine's here.
All right. So from this point on, we will be talking openly about the plot, characters, and themes of Lady Tremaine. So spoilers are ahead. If you haven't read the novel yet, please take this as your warning and also your sign to go read the book. It is more than worth your time. So this is it. This is the moment. If you need to stop here, go read it and then come back. Fantastic. We'll see you when you get back.
And this book is full of twists. Please don't listen anymore. You should read it. Please, please, please. Stop the episode. Bye. Go away.
All right. For those of you who are still here, I'm assuming that you've read this book.
I hope.
So let's get into it.
Get into it. Oh my God.
So we have 5. I'm into it. We have 5 discussion questions that we're gonna go through. First question, I'm just going to dive right in because Caroline and I, we've had some like very, very initial sort
We've
of
tried really hard to hold it in for you guys.
We have tried so hard that this is going to be some of the first times that you're hearing us talk to each other about it.
Oh my God.
In a way that is like, you know, whatever.
Aside from our text to each other going, holy shit, oh shit,
holy shit. So in this version of the story, Etheldreda and Ellen, we're going to go with Ellen. I was saying in my brain Elin, but we're going to go
like
Ellen because
Ella,
like Ella, we're going to go there. So Ethel and Ellen do not get along, but their conflict is not driven by hatred or evil. Why do Ethel and Ellen come into conflict? Is either of them right? So I think that's the whole point of this, is that I don't think any of them, like either of them is right per se. They're all doing the most right they can with the information that they have. Ellen is doing what she thinks is right based on the way she was raised.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so as annoying as I
will say, the couple of times when she needed to do chores and just like wouldn't do it, I was like, she's wrong. But
yes, I was like, she's wrong. But I was also like,
her.
I'm taking the side of Lady Tremaine, of Ethel in this, because it's being told from her point of view. But when I sat back and I was listening to the reasoning of why she was like, if we do this, we start making ourselves not the thing that we're trying to be, like not the ladies. And I'm like, you know what? It feels like it's not too far off of the things can only come into your life when you make space for them sort of mantra that people have, where like you sometimes have to act the way you want to be perceived. You have to believe it first in order for other people to see it.
Yeah.
So that sort of maxim that as she's like spouting off all these things, that
hilarious
has value to it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I don't think she's wrong. But she is completely unrealistic about what the reality that she's actually in.
I mean, and they're both operating from a place of intense loss. Like that's what's driving the reasoning behind the very opposite ways that each of them are operating. Is like basically I have nothing, and they kind of just take 2 separate roads towards trying to get something again and to survive this situation.
I know, and she's clinging on to these lessons from her mother.
Yeah.
Because that is her mother.
Yeah. The things that we think about when it comes to Ethel, they apply to Ellen as well. Of like, well, you can't know what it feels like to have these strange people suddenly come into your home and like this woman saying she wants to be a mother to you. And then suddenly the one person you know, your father, is gone too. It's traumatic. It's traumatic.
I think why they come into conflict in the way that they do and so often, part of it has to do with how different their circumstances growing up are. Like she's the daughter of a lord and a lady of a manor, and Ethel, she was the daughter of a brewer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you've
Exactly.
got working class versus slightly up. But I think the other thing is they're also very, very similar.
I kind of started thinking about that. Yes.
They're both trying very actively to steer the course of their own life.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen is very, very like actively trying to make a better life for herself with the only way that she knows how, which are these like maxims and this like pamphlet and that sort of thing. And she's willing to come to conflict with her stepmother over it.
Yeah.
Because she has this belief somewhere deep inside her that what she is doing is right. And that sort of ardent belief in what's right is the same thing that Ethel has.
Yes. And they both kind of take these actions that are kind of like, everybody else move out of my way.
Yeah.
Like Ethel's like, I'm going to set up my daughters in this field. They're going to meet the prince. Like move. I don't care if it's deception. Like move the F out of my way. I'm doing this. Much in the same way that like, when Ellen showed up in her cut up wedding gown, I wanted to throttle her. But it's the same kind of thing. She's like, I'm going and I need
like,
something to wear.
And she was like, I was invited.
Yeah. So it's the same kind of like, again, the wedding dress like deeply, deeply bothered me. But it's the same idea of like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Kind of like, if I'm not causing like, deep harm to other people, damn them. And I respect that. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, they are similar.
They're just both doing it from a very, very different way.
From the opposite. Yeah, exactly. So actually on that note, the book examines a multitude of female relationships, mother-daughter, sisters, friendships, romantic care, frenemies. Which female relationship did you find the most interesting or revelatory? The Sigrid and Ethel relationship is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I hate to kind of run towards the end of the book so soon in the discussion, but it changed my life. Seeing the evolution of the relationship between Ellen and Ethel to the point where they're carting a dead man's body into the woods together, I was like, it was perfect. It was perfect.
That relationship was probably the one that like got me the most excited as the book progressed.
Yeah.
Watching Ethel come back home and be like, no, I'm not going after her. Fuck her. And then her daughter sort of like impressing upon, and like then Ethel going out and trying to get Lucy and bring Lucy back and there is just such this complexity of this mother figure, this stepmother figure, this guardian trying to reach out and not getting the hand back, and this feeling like, okay, I'm going to just stop reaching out the hand, and then realizing that
is such a
part of your duty
feeling.
as a woman, as a stepmother and everything is to reach out the hand always to another woman and keep doing it even when when they're not taking the hand.
Yeah.
You have to keep doing it.
And that revelation that happens to her in the carriage ride after she has rescued her from the prince, where she is suddenly like, I'm letting her, put her head on my shoulder and like, I think she needs me to like hold her. And she's like, I never realized that I would also have to become a different version of me.
Yeah.
It's not just like take me or leave me, but it's like, how do you meet someone in the middle and like bring a different side of you when somebody needs it? I thought that was so beautiful and so interesting. And I also thought it was very interesting when she went to the palace and met Princess Hema.
Yeah.
Because for a second I was like, Hema. Probably to see anybody was a relief, I guess, in some ways. But for a minute I was like, she's like willing to talk to her. But first of all, she mentions her friend. So that gives her kind of like the way in. But I was also like, yeah, at the end of the day, like Ethel is a mom. She knows how to talk to and relate with young women. So I thought that was really interesting too, that she was able to like get Hema to trust her so quickly.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also says something about, I think, the nature of these women in this book, in this time and everything, of how starved it feels like they are for genuine connection to another person.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have very, very extreme versions and extreme reactions to it. Like Hema, who is literally like locked in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and how willing she is to speak with Ethel. And then you have Ethel, who can be incredibly standoffish, like with Otto when he sees her multiple times. And then you've got the daughters and stepdaughters, who are all sorts of gradients in between that.
Mm-hmm.
From Ellen, who's probably closer to Hema, the sort of like reserved and like, I just always believe everyone has the kindest of intentions with everything that they do. And then you have Matilda, who is much more like, I don't want to be married. I don't want this. I think, was such a sleeper hit for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
the sort of grit and anger about her. And it feels like she says the things that Ethel still hasn't realized about herself.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Matilda who tells her at the end, like, you've given us the freedom that you've been craving for and hunting for all along through marriage. We have it. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
have it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's not beautiful and pretty, but it's freedom. I'm not tied down to a man.
I also just like love that another thing that was turned on its head was in most versions, but in the Disney version especially, we have two sisters who will tear each other down in order to be with the prince. And not only are Matilda and Rosie, yes, they bicker, but they're extremely close and they care for one another so deeply. But Matilda's also just like not interested in the prince. She's just like,
No.
I'm good on that. I love that.
Not
Yeah.
interested. I'm like, she's probably. I'm
You
like,
think she's gay?
I could see her on the queer spectrum. She could be ace. She could be someone who's just like, I'm not interested
Yeah.
in that. But then you've also got these wonderful lesbian housekeepers who are there.
That's another thing that this book has in common with the Morgan is My Name trilogy. And again, I say yes. Obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And then also one of my favorite examples of the female relationship in the book was the wordless moment when Simeon has been killed. We must start a fire to get rid of the evidence.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much everybody in the house knows what happened, but it was just like, we're making a huge fire now. And they're like, okay.
They come outside.
They are all
and they're
like, we're doing
"Grip."
this now. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that I am lucky enough, and I hope everyone in their own way, but I hope every woman in their life has that experience with other women many times, but at least once. And I've had it. And Rachel wrote that so beautifully of just like, you don't have to say a word. You don't have to say a word when it's like, when you're with women.
It speaks to this sort of twofold thing, I think. So one, the amount of trust that Ethel has been able to instill in that household
Mhm.
for her. But there's this other piece, is this sort of like animal instinctual thing that I certainly can't speak to because I'm not a woman, but I know that women have when they just know that something is not right. And the language that is used so much around Simeon is this like beast, animalistic, like this beast was being held back from he was like, so why was I this beast to be held back from my lunch? So I figured I would come here and like devour, like this sort of like animal language is so much around him. And then
Mhm.
to like have that moment, that sort of like animalistic, instinctual, like something is not right moment with all the women, like just, it was so good.
I also
So
want to
good.
say, I meant to say this earlier, but I think it's fine now too. I mean, if you're here, you've most likely read the book, but if you happen to be here and you haven't read the book, just some trigger warnings for probably things that we're going to end up talking about and things that are in the book that have to do with sexual assault and
Yeah.
violence. So just be warned if you do not want to consume content around that. Absolutely understand, but I would kind of pause and stop it here.
So let's go on to the next question then. So this novel contains many nods to classic moments from the Disney animated movie, which are our favorites. I think one of my favorite things is actually Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there is no Peregrine Falcon in the Disney version, but Lucifer, the cat, is very much the animal sidekick of Lady Tremaine.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as we've discussed, the real villain of Cinderella.
We have.
But that was something that it took me a while to even figure out that that's what we were nodding to in the beginning until the moment happens with the death of Henry Tremaine and this new falcon that she's been, preparing to train, thinking that it's male, naming it Lucifer for the basically like pain in the ass devil that it is, and then realizing that it's female. I thought that was really, really cool. I was like, the whole imagery of the falconry was like very, very interesting to me. And being able to have that sort of iconic animal sidekick that we know from the Disney film and honor it in a way that fits very believably into this world, I thought that was like the most satisfying Disney nod to me.
It's so brilliant. I also just love a strong woman with a fierce animal sidekick.
Yeah.
Just injected into my veins. I do not know why this stuck with me so much. I thought it was going to be something at the ball. I mean, the ball was luscious. Don't get me wrong. But the moment of Ethel telling Ellen, you need to collect the ashes to sell if you want to have enough money to get this dress, that was one of those things that this novel actually leans away from most of the time that I think is great, which is like, I'm not going to tell you what was really happening behind this moment and make it all exactly the same. But something as small and detailed as that of like, yes, she actually is digging around in the cinders and the royal carriage pulls up and she's dirty is so satisfying because it comes in small measures. And I also loved that we even got the quote unquote, like the stepfamily rips her dress moment. Ellen made a crappy dress. She doesn't know how to make a dress. And it is falling apart at the seams when she comes downstairs to go to the ball. And like it catches on something and rips. And like someone reaches for it and it rips more. And so then her like underdress is sticking out. And obviously there are so many rules. I loved also the historical, like the exact look that these women had to have at the ball. There had to be a feather.
There had to be a feather. Had to be a certain height, a certain length of train.
Yes. And like the neckline had to be open. So good. So I loved that it was this very specific, like you're under things. Like there's absolutely no way for you to go to the ball. I loved that. But I also loved in that moment, that was the first time that I felt a very strong pang of sympathy for Ellen. I'm like, yes, you were an absolute dumbass and like you did not prepare for this. And everybody gave you every opportunity to be prepared and offered to help you and you didn't take it. But I felt so bad for her in that moment. And I thought that was so interesting and surprising with this version of Cinderella.
Yeah. And I think one of the things about, this is sort of straying from the question, but going off of that is Lady Tremaine, just when you think you're like, okay, she's the hero, she's the hero, she's the hero, she does these things where it's just a step too far, where it's like, you didn't have to go that hard.
Yep.
Or you didn't, like, she doesn't have to be digging around in the cinders right now to find something, but you're like, I'm going to make you do that because I gave you this, and this, and you didn't do any of those things. So now I'm going to find the most demeaning thing I can have you do, and you're going to do that.
And it's fascinating because I understood it. And it's so funny because I'm a huge Cinderella and even more so than Disney Cinderella, just like versions of the Cinderella story lover. And I felt the smallest twinge of resistance when we first met Ellen, and she was just like so annoying right off the bat. And I was like, oh no. But it's a true testament to this book that I was just able to like move on from that and like get with it and come all the way back around in a circle with Ellen by the end.
It gives her somewhere to go.
Yeah. Yes. So this is something that you and I have not been able to resist talking about a little bit as we were texting, as we were reading this. Were you expecting this book to be as dark as it was? And did any of the revelations or events at the end surprise you?
I was not expecting this book to be as dark as it was. But I also found myself as I was reading continuing to go to those places and then second guessing myself and being like, this isn't that kind of book, Conor. Like, relax.
We texted about this. We both had the moment of like, again, trigger warning. We both had the moment of incest.
And
then I was like, God, no, Caroline.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't Game of Thrones, Connor. Like, you're used to that type of like epic
Just because
fantasy.
my brain
weird
immediately
shit.
was like, he's not just because he wants to help his sister.
No, I'm like,
No.
he ard her.
Because even though the first time we really meet him, I was like, he's like fun and like charming.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, still, even though I liked him at that point, I'm like, there's no way that guy is just like doing something out of the goodness of his heart for his sister. I don't buy that right away. Yeah.
No. Yeah, that I wanted it to go there when I was reading everything that was happening with, I forget her name, the servant that she brings on.
Is it Morwen?
Morwen?
Morwen,
yes. Yes. When she starts talking, I'm like, oh my God, he raped his sister.
And also when she was like trying to avoid him, I thought he raped her as well.
Yes. I was like, oh, he's everybody up in that house.
Yeah.
And
that's what he says he's going to do.
Then I was like, no, Connor, no. And it's like, that's
the part.
That's what he did.
That was the part.
Going up the stairs where he's like, I'm going to go find your daughters. I was like.
It was hard.
That was tough.
That was really hard to read. And I really respect her for going there because like, I know that there's a big debate about these kinds of subjects about like, when does someone take it too far where it's gratuitous? And I didn't feel like that with this because the feeling that it gave me, that I think it could give, anyone who doesn't operate in, as a woman in society could still understand the absolute horror of that. When he said like, I'm going to pluck their wings.
Yes.
I wanted to vomit, but I don't think it was ever too much. And because he said that and because that's what he was going to do, which I just like cannot even deal with. I actually thought also once they killed him, I thought they were going to chop this man up and put him in the fire too. And I was so ready for them to chop this motherfucker to pieces.
Yeah.
What happened is so fucking good too, but I was ready for his body to get chopped up.
Yeah.
I was ready. I was ready because I, to this day, am still so emotionally affected from Promising Young Woman. And this like healed some part of me that is like still messed up from watching that movie.
Yeah. I think in that moment, I think that was one of my favorite scenes is when he comes to the house and everyone's asleep except for her.
It was one of those things that as soon as she got dropped off at the house, I was like, he knows where you live. What are you doing?
I was like, get out of there.
I had that. I knew it was going to happen. So when I knew. When she said she heard it.
She hears the carriage and she knows what it is. And she's like, what? And then she knows that I didn't lock the door because we don't lock the door when we're here.
Yes. It's like a horror movie because you're in the middle of nowhere. There's literally nothing to do.
And her going down there, it was just so interesting the way she was trying to handle it. She greets him at the door. She's trying to like diffuse the situation. And when he's just like, I'm going after your daughters, it's such a crucial moment because it truly shows you not just how little he thinks of her, a lady, a woman, but how that is sort of the mindset of most men in this time. Like she is such a non-thing to him that he walks and pushes past her on the steps. Like she's like blocking the steps and he just walks past her.
And then believes her when she's trying to deceive him and is like, okay, I'll bring you. Believes that she would do that. That it's like, well, I'm the prince at the end of the day. Like,
yes,
she's going to do it.
I'm a prince at the end of the day. And, oh, yes, this is a matter of the house. Finding your way around the house, a woman knows that. So it just, there's so much nuance and levels to the sort of like social dynamic that is happening between the two of them in that scene. And it just gripped me. Like
I was like,
else.
I wish I had like, I don't own an Oura ring or an Apple Watch, but good Lord, if I did, it would have been like, where are you running to? Because I was like, could not breathe.
Yeah. I was
God.
not expecting it to go to some of the dark places, but then even some of the like on the spectrum of dark things, lighter dark things, I remember reading, and this kind of is also like a Disney nod, when we have the flashback about the blue organza wedding dress. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God. That's going to be the dress that Ellen shows it.
Yep.
I'm like, that's going to be it. That's going to be it. I'm like, they're not going to do that. Like, she's not going to do that. It's just, no. And it's like, nope, we're going to go there. She's going to show up at the ball in her motherfucking wedding dress
Yep.
of Henry, the love of Ethel's life. Like, Jesus.
Yes.
Like, there's just such good, juicy shit in that.
It's almost like I couldn't have, as hard as some of it was to read, I couldn't have fantasized like anything better because I want things to do this. I want it to be this exciting and this scary. And like, even things like, I mean, we could talk a whole episode about Sigrid, this bitch, but like her seeing Ethel's bruised throat from when Simeon tried to kill her with his foot. And first of all, as terrible as it was so satisfying that she could make Sigrid believe that she got those injuries trying to get Ellen back from him. I mean, when things slot into place like that, it's so satisfying. But the fact that Sigrid doesn't 100% know what happened between Simeon and Ethel, and it could have been a number of things knowing this man. And she still says like, well, immediately, like he's just a boy. Meanwhile, her daughter is pregnant with his child. Her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I know why it was written like this. Like, what a fascinating look at motherhood. But, I mean, I already hated her, so there wasn't much further we could go. But, like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sigrid's such a good character. It was
whoever plays her in the movie is a lucky son of a, because it's so juicy.
It's our Cersei Lannister.
Yeah.
Cersei, who is like constantly apologizing for Joffrey, and she's like, I know who he is. I know he's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, but I'm a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read a bit from it. This is like the darkness that is exactly what I love the most, and the way that it was done is so perfectly. So this is the reveal from Princess Hemma. So Ethel says, he must care about you greatly to go to such lengths, or your mother does, and he is doing as she wishes. But I cannot make sense of. Stop, she demanded, frustrated by my words. I agreed with my silence, and Hemma held my eyes, trying to say so much with her own. Who got you pregnant? I asked, stupidly, because I knew a second before I said it. I was sorry to make her say it aloud, but it was too late. My brother. She didn't look away. Simeon? I was still stunned by the confirmation. King of the beasts, she confirmed, her whole body tense. You two are... No, she whispered. You did not want... I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. No, I did not, she confirmed, with less vehemence, her shoulders falling. He preyed on you, I asked, appalled. I could not help but think of my girls, Matilda's scar, the twin braids, the freckle on a calf, how easily all the world's children become your own. She shook her head and whispered as if frightened, not just me, not only me, also me. The wall around the garden felt suddenly monstrous and suffocating, not only a snake, a constrictor. You are his sister. I did not want to believe her. I did not want to accept her story, but I thought back to the wound I had seen on Simeon's arm the day of our picnic, his apologetic smile, his haste to dismiss it, the sleeve pulled down. The lesion had had a distinctive pattern. Semi-lunar and curved, it followed the crescent shape of human teeth. Hemma was quiet. Woman first, sister second. Then she looked up and held my eyes. She deserves to know. That page, thank you for bearing with me. I know that's hard to read and hard to listen to, but that page says so much. That's what I want in a book when it goes to those dark places. It's going to a dark place with such purpose.
Yeah. I take for granted these kinds of moments because, like I mentioned earlier, I do read a lot of literature in this vein of like women saving women is my favorite thing. What a beautiful example of that. And I love that she comes back to that thought later after they've killed him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and then I think of like all of the other women in this kingdom. All the other women.
Mm-hmm. The cage imagery around him of like the guards and everything, where it's like, no, it's not. A cage is not meant to protect the thing inside. It's to protect the world from the thing inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
God. The metaphors were metaphoring,
Yeah.
the images were imaging. So much is said without being said. And that's also like a trait of, I mean, Rachel Hochhauser, she knows her audience, she knows her readers. She knows that they're putting it all together, and she gives us just enough and never too much. And it's
That's
perfect.
very true. Very, where everything comes to you in an inkling rather than feeling like you're steps ahead of her.
Yeah.
But also never being blindsided where you feel like this wasn't breadcrumbed for me because it
Right.
was. Yeah. Yep.
And then our last question. So in the epilogue, Etheldreda speaks directly to the reader saying, quote, "You tell me, is this a happy ending?" How would you answer her question? What does happily ever after mean to you?
For me, a group of women living on their own, despite the fact that that's like not accepted by society, and kind of giving up the pursuit of rising within society, and they're safe from this monster and he's buried in the motherfucking ground. That's a happy ending to me.
Yeah.
And I love that there is always this looming fear of someone finding out. For literary purposes, I definitely enjoy that there is always going to be this. There's a couple of specters. There's the specter of the body that's buried nearby their property, but also the specter of society that they will be outcast from forever.
Mhm.
Maybe not Ellen. She still comes from a well-to-do family and there's hope for her. Especially because I was thinking, like, to society, she was chosen by the prince and then he, mysteriously disappeared. So
Mhm.
she's the diamond of the season.
She's the diamond of the season.
So, like, if that's what she wants and she's, she says she's still working on her trousseau, great. And I think that's also why it's a happy ending, because it's not like they're all living at the house being like, none of us ever want to get married and like none of us care about that. There's still room for Ellen to be who she is and to still be working on her trousseau and to still probably want that, but to have a very different idea of like how poorly it can go for a woman. I think to me, that's absolutely a happy ending.
Yeah, I think this is a happy ending. And I think when she asks, "You tell me, is this a happy ending?" I think she knows that there's no answer to it. It isn't as simple as yes or no. And I think when you look at happily ever after, that's not a complete sentence. Because
It's happily ever after in the style of Into the Woods.
yeah, because it's usually and they lived happily ever after. The happily ever after is contextualizing that they lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the thing here is like happily ever after is like a choice that they have to make every day. And it feels like they are a little bit more aligned with what that looks like for them at the end of this. Ethel knows that her happily ever after means that she does not marry again. It doesn't mean that she can't find companionship. It doesn't mean she can't have romance. But she knows what it looks like for her and is able to advocate for that as well.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said because it makes me almost think that the ending of this book is like, and they lived, dash.
They lived. Yeah.
Happily ever after, because number one, and they lived.
They
this
lived.
fucking man didn't kill them.
He didn't kill
and
them.
They killed him. But also she talks all the time about Matilda being born and almost not making it.
Mhm.
And her always saying, live.
Live.
So it does feel like, and they lived, dash. And that's happily ever after because they lived.
Mm-hmm. That's the Big Little Lies of it all. Like when we
Yes.
got into that scene, I'm like, that is fully the
It
ending
so
of Big Little
is.
Lies. Like
It
all of
so
the
is.
women
And
coming together, bearing the secret and everything.
And
when we watched that shit together.
That was an era of our friendship. We would like come home to the apartment every night, crack open a twisted tea, and watch the next episode of Big Little Lies, and it had us by the throat. It was good. If someone was like Big Little Lies plus Cinderella, we'd be like, where?
Yeah,
Where?
I'd be like, where? But also, I would get halfway through and I'd be like, where's the Big Little Lies?
Mhm.
You got to wait for it. But
Yeah.
when you get it, you get it.
This would make an excellent film.
This is going to be a fantastic movie, and you're going to be great in it as literally any of the characters.
I need it. Okay, I got to move on.
So let's move on. We're going to move on to sort of our last couple things here.
Yeah.
let's talk memorable moments. What are
We've hit a lot of them. We have a lot of them in common too.
For me, I think the biggest memorable moment for me is the Henry Tremaine of it all. So much of that storyline, that origin is exactly what I wanted in this book. There's that moment when Ethel confesses what she did to Sigrid. That scene, she's telling him, she's like, we were quarreling. And he says, you were quarreling? And she says, it was an awful decision. If I'd known what would happen. You were quarreling, he repeated. The poor horse, will he be all right? Will he come home? I deeply regretted what I had done to that horse. Ethel, Henry said severely, what were you quarreling about? I paused, my hand wringing. You, I said in surprise. We locked eyes. Of course, I added. He strode over to me and took my face between two firm hands and kissed me, hard. Forgive me, he said, taking a step back. But what is there to quarrel about? I finished that page and I went, this man.
But you know what's so interesting?
He was never good with Sigrid.
Yes.
It was always her.
And I just love that that's like the simplicity with which he does that totally is like why she loves him. But I also love that it mirrors the simplicity of like how we learn about Henry and their love story. We can take her word for it that she's like, that was the love of my life. But we're not drawn into a lot of their private conversations. It's not belabored because of the place that Ethel gets to by the end of the book, which is like, I am past that being a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's just like, it was this. He kissed me. We got married. He was the love of my life and the father of my children. The end.
Yep.
There's something so sad about that it wasn't more detailed.
I love the simplicity of it because a true love, something like that, it is kind of simple when it comes down to it.
And it's what she describes about their life of like, it's like the little moments that were the most special ones.
And I think of then their wedding night too, when he's like, why do you have all of these buttons? And she's like, I put them on them myself. Like it's to keep male suitors away. And he's unbuttoning them. And he finally gets to the like last one. And he's like, it looks like we're out of buttons. And then she's like, it seems like we are. And then she just like slides out of it.
And I went, and then what?
And then we move on.
And
because the no offense, the coming together, the making of the love, the sexuals, is not the important part. The simple moment before was the important part.
I know. And part of the reason that I went, and then what, is because I'm me, but also because at this point, I was, in the best way, reading a different book.
Yes.
I was reading a different book.
I'm like, oh,
so I was like,
romance.
Okay, here's where she, as happens in these kinds of novels, of which I read a lot, I as much as I enjoy my steamy scenes, I am a little bit tired of like, and that was the night that I lost my virginity. Like, I don't really need to read those anymore. So as much as I said, and then what, I thought I was reading a different book. And so that was like the first time that something was getting turned on its head and I didn't even realize it.
And I loved what comes after that too. It's like, and the dress fell to the floor and that's where it stayed for the rest of the night. And I'm like, how artful.
Very tasteful. Very tasteful.
Oh my goodness. And then I think my other biggest memorable moment is Ethel's return trip to the palace, the very last one. Her going into the bathroom and finding the secret passage door.
In like
and then
the mural.
Her traversing the sort of like
So
servant
good.
corridors.
So good.
Where I'm like, that's Lady Tremaine. She lives in both of these worlds. She can be in the room, but then she can also go through the walls.
And she is then in those moments a little bit that Lady Tremaine we see in the animated movie where it's dark and you just see her in the shadows.
And
like,
you just
there
like
she
see
is.
her eyes and everything. I'm like, yeah, she is in the shadows, slinking
between doorways. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love those moments with her. And we even sort of have it too when she's stuck behind the curtain.
I was just going to say that.
The queen and everything. And that feels very to me like a little bit of Bernadette Peters in the Brandy Cinderella where she's sort of like on the balcony, like behind trying to figure out.
Yes.
Like very active. I love that scene of her going back to the palace. And then when she goes and sees Sigrid, and I'm like, what in the Ned Stark are you fucking doing right now?
Oh, it's
Don't
so
talk to
that.
her. Don't talk to the queen. Oh my God. The palpitations. From that point on.
From that point on,
just,
it was like,
I was like, I'm locked in. I can't stop reading.
no, my final sprint of the book was, it began when she went to the palace. And then it was just you have to go to the end after that point.
Yeah.
All
what
right.
were your memorable moments?
I mean, there's so many. We've talked about a couple of them, but one of them for me was the reveal that Sigrid was the queen. Because for me, that's when it became the book that it really is. Because up until that point, like I said, it's like, I was like, oh, we're going to have the scene where she, the first time that she has sex on her wedding night. And like, we told the story about the other girl who was interested in her future husband to prove that they really loved each other. And he chose her over this well-to-do girl. And then suddenly, and it like, of course she's the queen. Of course that girl is the queen. Weaseled her way into doing that. That's when it started to become this book for me. And little did I know that wasn't the big reveal of the book. I really thought it was. I thought it was. And I also just love when she first sees her again, that she's like looking at her gloved hand and is trying to figure out if she has a finger missing. Oh my God.
Also the fact that everyone has to wear gloves when they see the queen.
Obsessed.
I love shit like that.
And then Ethel, I said it already. It's Ethel and Ellen with the cart.
The full circle moment of them crossing the river from the very beginning to get to the royal land. Poaching, but now she's returning to something.
And also, again, like all of these micro twists of like, I thought that Lucy was going to be the one to finish Simeon off, like combined with Ethel. First of all, I was just absolutely devastated when is he my most hated fictional character now? He might be.
I really hate him.
He's like worse than Joffrey to me.
He's awful.
Because Joffrey has like this bizarro like impishness, and this guy's just like pure.
I mean, Joffrey is terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
but there's something about
in the books,
Simeon.
He's like even worse. But you can also sort of like kind of be like, okay, he's a sick, twisted child.
Yeah.
Where like Simeon is grown and like there's something to that too.
Yeah.
But I will say real quick before you keep going, I just want to note that I love the little moment with Lucy coming in and scratching out Simeon's eyes where his eyeball is literally distended, because it's just like a nod to like the Grimm fairy tale of the birds pecking out the eyes of the stepsisters.
That's some genius. That's some genius shit.
Love that nod. Sorry, but keep going.
No, not at all. And so I kind of, once he was back at her and he had his foot on her throat, I kind of was like, okay, someone else is going to have to intervene here. And I prayed to God that it wasn't going to be Otto, because I was like, I'm putting this book down and I'm never picking it up again if Otto saves her. And he didn't. Thank you, Rachel. Not that you would ever do that, but thank you. And just the fact that it was Ellen, and just like,
with a piece of the house.
With a piece of the fallen in roof. But just in the fact that like, yes, she does throw in one of her little like maxims right after. Just the fact that after that point, she isn't like, oh my God, did I kill him? Nope, she's just like, that happened. A loud crack, he collapsed, a straight fall to the floor. I could not see, could not make sense of it for a moment until my vision cleared and I saw Ellen standing over him. And not reading anymore, I went, and then I started bawling. A wooden post, a part of the damaged roof, in her hands. In resolving challenges, one must look to the compass of justice, she said, staring down at Simeon. She turned to me, breath shallow. I heard screaming. I'm going to start crying. Slowly, painfully, I pulled myself to sitting, looked over at him. I do not think Simeon heard or understood what had happened. I was reasonably sure, a spreading pool of blood, inert limbs, still lips, that he was dead. Ellen peered down at his body, eyes glistening. He was not a gentleman. My throat, which pulsed, felt crushed like a stalk of wheat that had been bent and mangled. No, I rasped. No, he was not. I put my arms out and did my best to soften Ellen's fall. She had fainted. It was the perfect balance of like Ellen still being Ellen, but also taking a step outside of who she's always been without it feeling unrealistic and it feeling like the next part of her journey.
And the act of Ethel reaching out to soften the fall. That's the lesson that the two of them learned. Like Ethel learning that she needed to meet Ellen where she is. And here is that moment where Ellen is meeting Ethel where she is, where it's like, sometimes you gotta fucking kill a bitch. And Ethel's
You
like,
gotta
yeah.
fucking kill a bitch. I really like, it was 1:00 in the morning and I was like, shit, I need to go somewhere and scream. But wait, I want to find one more thing when they're with the cart. Also, I was obsessed with the fact that when they were coming back from burying his body and the queen is arriving and she's like, nope, we're walking right through the cider house and we're going to act
Yep.
like we just came out of there. And that the person who actually ends up being like, ew, Cinderella, you're filthy, is Sigrid,
Mm-hmm.
clean and beautiful. So then they're burying his body. We looked at one another a moment. We were sweating and our hems were blackened with mud. Dirt encrusted our nails. Ellen's nose had begun to bleed again. I have a blister, she told me, extending her hand to show me. And there it sat in the meat of her palm, round, white, perfect. It will heal. She withdrew her hand, inspected the bleb. I do not mind.
Yeah.
And then, God, like the into the woods moment of it all, where Ethel says to her, I think you will find being a woman is nothing like being a girl. And that grace and justice are sometimes pursued by means less graceful and less just. Ellen frowned. Life cannot contain such a contradiction. Oh, it can, I started. And it's giving the end of Into the Woods.
Yeah. Witches can be right. Giants can be good.
Yep.
You decide what's right. You decide what's good.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Let's give our final thoughts.
I feel like we haven't even like touched half
I
of this
know.
book. There's just so much in it. Yeah.
And if you want to keep talking about it, we have a place for you to do it.
Mhm.
Go into the Poor Unfortunate Fam, the Discord. We have a book discussion thread. It's largely been me sort of talking to myself in there. So come join the discussion with that. But I think my final thoughts, I don't really have any very like eloquent, cohesive thoughts that I've put together other than I see exactly why Reese Witherspoon selected this book for her book club. I feel like it's any day now that this is going to be optioned by her production company for a film. It is so timely and imaginative and I think it's brilliant and beautiful all the way
Beautiful.
through. Beautiful for all of its darkness and the pieces that are decayed and like flecking away. I think it's all summed up in that final image of all of those women walking back into that broken house together because they have each other and they can fix the roof and they'll manage it together. But it's like that space is theirs, and I think there's just something very, very powerful in that, and that's not the book that I was expecting to read, but it's the book I'm so grateful that I got to read.
Yeah, I imagined reading the end of this book and it kind of being like, and I watched Ella coming down the steps after the wedding and I felt this, and this. And then we would be like, oh yeah, and I know why she feels that now. I know why she's a little bit mad. Like I literally thought that that's what we were going to get out of this book.
Yeah.
I don't know how to sum up the experience of this book. There are definitely folks who I think will pick up this book looking for a little bit more of that, like, and finding a little bit more of the, deliciously cruel woman we love to hate, looking for Cate Blanchett and wanting to find out why maybe some of, the way that character acts might be justified. But that's obviously, like we've talked about, that's not this Ethel. And I've read people online who are wishing for that from this book. But to that I say, you're kidding yourself if you don't think that the things that Ethel does in this book, which are survivalist and cunning at times, would not be interpreted by a patriarchal society as evil. If someone in the story knew every single thing that she had done, they'd be like, yeah, she's this cruel, evil woman. And I think that's the key here. Women can just try to bend the rules a little and behave 1/millionth as badly as men and still be called the villain. And it's funny that I saw this online today, but in the wake of it being over 130 days since the partial and heavily redacted Epstein files being released, I recognize that I might not be able to look at this book through the most critical of lenses because it makes me feel very emotional. I and so many women and people, anybody out there with a brain and a heart and a conscience, I know live with so much rage every single day when we watch powerful men continue to do whatever the fuck they want. And this ending, seeing the predator ended by the women he intended to do more harm to for a brief moment, offered me some, it's not even small relief, it's large relief. And it's funny that this really like violent, horrible moment felt like a fantasy. That's what was so strange. It was very cathartic. And "You are the scariest thing in the forest," the final line of the epilogue, is absolutely going to be my next tattoo if I get another tattoo. And now I might have to because of this book. Ultimately, yes, there's value, of course, in literary criticism. First of all, I believe this is an excellent book from a technical and literary criticism perspective. But the greatest value in art is its ability to make us feel, think, heal, and look outside of ourselves. This book was exciting, interesting, and extremely healing to me, and I couldn't ask for more. And as I brought it up earlier, I just started reading this other book called Women of the Fairy Tale Resistance, and I've only just begun it today, but y'all, I had to point this out. Charles Perrault was a regular visitor of women's salons in France, so this book lays out how in these salons the fairy tale was born. And later, the Brothers Grimm called women his, quote, inferior imitators, even though his book of tales came out after the volumes these women had published. So there is this inherent sexism and silencing of women, even in the origins of the Cinderella story that we know. So what a perfect story to take another look at right now this year.
I think we absolutely had a wonderful time doing this episode for you all, choosing this book as the first one that we would do in this type of format. So thank you all for going on this ride with us. We love having you here, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you heard, please remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're getting the podcast. Make sure to opt in for notifications if you're on YouTube. And then this is that moment. Give us a good Goodreads review. Hit 5 stars. Leave that written review. Leave a comment if you're on YouTube. Like, even if just being like, "Oh, I read the book," like that does so much for us. It just sort of feeds the algorithm. So thank you so much for doing that. And we hope if you liked this, that maybe we'll get an opportunity to do another one. So that could be your comment too. Like, what's the next book that you'd love us to do a book club episode for?
Absolutely. This is going to be such a hard act to follow. I think after
Very
this, we
true.
might have to do like a nonfiction Disney history book because I'm like, where do we go from here?
Or Upon a Starlit Tide.
Yeah.
I'll read it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, speaking of feeding the algorithm, please follow us on social media. We are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. Obviously, if you are watching this, we are here on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And we would love to hear your thoughts in whatever way you would like to share them. You can DM us on social media. Please leave a comment. Or, like Conor mentioned, if you want to have an even more in-depth discussion, please join the Poor Unfortunate fam. So we have our private Facebook group and we have our Discord, which is where we've got a whole separate thread ready to go to talk about this book with you all. And I would love nothing more than to connect over it. Tell us what you want to read in the future. We will always try to let you know when we're going to do another book club ahead of time, so you have plenty of time to read the book. But if somehow you've gotten this far and you haven't read it, I sincerely hope you will go get it out of the library or get a copy of it. And we would love to connect with you on it. And everything Poor Unfortunate Podcast, if you are new here, come on down. Please introduce yourselves because we would love to learn more about you too.
And if you're looking for merch, the Poor Unfortunate shop is open. Go to poorunfortunatepodcast.com/shop for all the merchandise that you could want. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you'd like to support the podcast and get a little bit more for your money, you can join the Poor Unfortunate Patreon. All of our plans are under $10. They get you exclusive bonus content, bonus episodes, and for the Trident tier, Caroline What's New, which makes this a weekly podcast for you. So go ahead, go to patreon.com/poorunfortunatepodcast. That's patreon.com/poorunfortunatepodcast. All right. So next up, we will be back with a wild card episode.
There might be a tiny bit of a break. So again, you
Yeah.
shouldn't really be here if you haven't read the book. But if somehow you are here, now you have time to read the book because we're going to take a little moment. We both have some trips coming up.
Mhm.
I'm actually just very sad that this episode is over. We've been looking forward to it for a long time, and
For
we're
a very long
recording this
time.
now also a lot sooner than we originally planned to because we both tore through the book and then needed to talk about it immediately.
Yeah.
So this was great. And I'm glad to
Yeah.
give this a little moment and then a pause, and then we'll pick back up again with our wild card.
Yeah. So if you want some episodes in the meantime and you're not a Patreon subscriber, go ahead and become a Patreon subscriber, and then you'll have access to all of the Caroline What's New episodes that you've missed so far this season. So you can catch up on all of that stuff. But until next time, Beluga Sevruga.